Good morning, afternoon. I've already been a few places around the state, including the beautiful North Country, where I had a chance to speak to the Chiefs of Police Association statewide and speak to a number of organizations. So I got to reset my time zone. I'm back in the city. So great to be here. And Robin, thank you for your work at this extraordinary organization. I mean, this facility has given a new opportunity for so many individuals to achieve the next rung on their career ladder, to get the very dignified and renowned CUNY graduate degree, which has really propelled a lot of people to tremendous jobs and opportunities. So I thank you for the work that you've done there. I also want to recognize some of my partners in government, because government is a partnership. If you do it right, it is a collaborative process. Hasn't always been that way, but that's one of the things we're changing day by day. And I want to recognize some of the people you'll be hearing from. Senator John Mannion. I want to thank him for his leadership in sponsoring a number of bills for us here today, and on the committee that he represents. Assemblymember Joanne Simon is here. I want to thank her for what she's done in introducing bills. Also, we have in attendance Senator Cordell Clear. I just saw you Sunday. Okay, so saw you. We were in church together. Assemblymember Chris Burdick is here. Assemblymember Harvey Epstein is here. Assemblymember Dick Godfrey is here. Assemblymember Stefani Zinnerman is here. Assemblymember Latoya Joyner is not, because I just saw her in the North Country, and I'm pretty sure she didn't get here ahead of me. And also Councilmember Keith Powers and Councilmember Linda Lee are here as well. Also want to give a shout out to Doug Hovey, who you'll be hearing from briefly in a few minutes. He'll be speaking to you. But Carrie Nyfield, our commissioner, and I want to thank her for her leadership. As I travel around the state, Carrie, so many people say to me that you're just doing an incredible job. And so I want to thank you for what you and your team have done since you've become such an important person in this journey. This is a journey to make sure that everyone's rights, everyone's civil rights, everyone's human rights are protected. So it's also a day to celebrate a pivotal moment in American history. Some of you may be too young to remember, but 32 years ago, a law that really was significant in so many ways, the American with Disabilities Act. And to many, it's just known as the ADA, but it has always been the touchstone, an opportunity for us to say, does it meet the standards that were set at that time when we decided it was time to right the wrongs of the past and have true equality in how people in this country are treated. And it is something we're all very proud of, and we're going to continue to build on that progress. And it really has been, since that time, the most comprehensive piece of legislation that pertains to people with disabilities. It really was a monumental victory for civil rights, because it finally enshrined a fundamental truth that people with disabilities deserve the exact same opportunities as everyone else, the exact same rights, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. And these protections were very long overdue. And it also marks another not so positive milestone, but it was 50 years ago this year that Geraldo Rivera put a spotlight and a camera on circumstances that were just accepted as the norm, probably since the 1800s, warehousing of people, because they never took the time to understand their needs. And the cruelty that happened, the inhumane treatment of people was called out at Willowbrook State School by Geraldo Rivera. And what that did was it put a spotlight on the horrific conditions that occurred in the darkness behind closed doors. And I remember reading about that and reflecting on man's inhumanity to man and to women, what was going on behind those doors. And actually what that did was it sparked a movement of reform. And it also just said that people living with disabilities have unalienable rights that can never be compromised. So out of that, the ADA came forth, as well as the Olmstead decision, a landmark Supreme Court decision that says that people with disabilities have the right to live and the services they need to be integrated with society. No more isolation. So the ADA is a great thing to celebrate. And I think back when I was quite a bit younger, I was about 13 years old, and I grew up in a household where our parents were very attuned with the needs of the society. We didn't have a lot, but they were social justice Catholics, and they're always finding a cause to champion. And we were so involved in the causes of the late 60s and the early 70s. And after this, there was a movement to move people out into the communities. to start closing down the warehousing of individuals. But there's also a recognition that you can't take people that may have been living here since they were a child and now thrust them into society and expect them to thrive. I mean, what are the expectations there? Unrealistic. So there was a program where people would be able to go into the families of people in a neighborhood and live with them. And my parents, being good people that they were, we brought two people in, Roger and Melanie. They were probably 16 and 17-year-olds. They came to live with us for a while. And my job as a probably 10 to 13-year-old range was to take them shopping and to teach them how to go to the little hamburger place and buy lunch, and just to show them the basic things that I knew as a child that they had been denied the opportunity to learn because they were in this facility. So I saw back then that this was just wrong, that these people never should have been trying to find the outside world for the first time as teenagers or young adults. And we have corrected that, and we've made good progress. But as you'll see today, we're going to always be moving ahead with more progress. So we will be talking about, I have a nice proclamation for Doug in a couple of minutes. It's really nice and long. I wrote it on the plane. Not really. I just made that part up. But we do have fewer people living in institutions than we did, so we have a lot more work to do. But I want to talk about some legislation, because you also have a well-intended legislature and a governor who want to make sure if there's any issue that comes to our attention where a wrong needs to be righted, we will take the pen and do just that, and that is what today is about. So today we have a bill sponsored by Senator Mannion and Assembly Member Joanne Simon that relates to decision-making by people with intellectual, developmental, cognitive, and psychosocial disabilities. What it does is it creates a formal and legal process for those living with these challenges to make their own decisions about their lives. There should not be an automatic presumption that someone else has to make the decisions for them. And I'm glad we've evolved to that point today. But other than just saying it, let's make it the law of the state of New York. And so we're going to be finding that in tonight. Because before we signed this, people living with disabilities, when they turned 18, the only formal process has been through guardianship, and that's it. And that was decided through a court system, again, taking away the right to someone to have control over their own lives. But people want autonomy in their lives. They want to make decisions, and now they'll be able to be the decision maker. And it allows them to have a roadmap to make decisions about their own lives. So we had a pilot program since 2016. We've seen firsthand that it works, but let's just make it the law of the land. We also have 4 other bills, and I want to talk about. One is a public awareness campaign to combat the stigma and stereotyping of individuals with developmental disabilities. Again, this was John Mannion and Carrie Werner, Assembly Member Carrie Werner. And individuals with these disabilities contribute in so many meaningful ways. And this campaign is to celebrate that and to put the spotlight on this and reduce the stigma that has been there for so long. So we're going to be signing that into law as well. And Bills 3 and 4, our third and fourth bill, refer to references to the archaic and now viewed as offensive terms in numerous sections of New York state law, where they describe people with disabilities as being mentally retarded. We've evolved from that. That is a stigma that we can move away from. So we need to work on that, and Senator Roxanne and Thomas Abenati are the ones who are the sponsors of that bill, so I congratulate them for recognizing that this should not be in the laws of New York. We have different ways to describe individuals. And the last one eliminates the state residency requirement for designated beneficiaries of the New York ABLE program, that we think that this should be available to more individuals elsewhere, so more people can access this important program. So those are what we're going to be signing, these bills today. I'm excited about it, glad to have our final mark on that, say it is now the law of the land. And also, earlier this month, I was able to sign other legislation enforcing the rules related to disabled access parking spaces. What a hassle this is when people abuse that. Very insensitive, not recognizing the needs of others, the reason behind this. So we made those changes as well. I also do want to just point out that one of the other really good things I did as governor was, for the first time, create New York State's first disability officer to really elevate the position. And I was able to find an individual with the heart and compassion and the experience and the knowledge to really be a champion for the disability community and for others. And so I want to thank Kim Hill for accepting that position, for what she has done. Her team has hit the ground running as we went through our budget process. We collaborate with the Division of Human Rights to train every state agency to make sure they have an ADA coordinator. And also, just many of the gaps where people were left out of the workforce, we've been talking about this, and Kim is very thoughtful and has a lot of ideas on how we can focus on this as well. In fact, I want New York State to be a model employer. It starts with us. We have to do things right. And as a result of that, I've authorized state agencies to designate up to 1,200 positions, 1,200 state positions to be filled by qualified individuals who have disabilities. So that's how we start changing the culture. That's how we start making real progress. My daughter works in Washington, D.C. For a small company that does consulting for companies that are trying to figure out ways to make their workplaces more inclusive for people with disabilities. It's a narrow niche. But if you ever wonder about my commitment to this, I get a text from her every single day, like, what are you doing today, Mom, in this space. So she has a good heart as well. She was raised to be just like her grandparents, very outward thinking. And so there's many, many ways, as I've learned through her, that we can be a model so states can show what others can do in the private sector, because I believe the private sector can do so much more to lift people up. And I've gone to many places where we also understand that people who have certain disabilities actually have unique capabilities to work in certain areas where others may not. And we talk about that in terms of coding and deciphering messages and how we can be helping understand threat assessment through cybersecurity. I mean, it's been really fascinating to see people that have been trained because they have an intellectual predisposition towards seeing patterns. So we are taking advantage of everybody's talents and putting them to use in our state. And I want to continue to work with the private sector to show and to educate them on our expectations of businesses here in the state of New York of what we want to see from you as well. So Kim is leading the charge on that as well. So because I believe the ADA is a gold standard, but I want to go past the gold standard. I don't know what's after gold. Is that platinum? Whatever the standard is, that is New York, because we are the Excelsior state. We are a state of great exceptionalism, and I want to be the model, and that is what we're going to continue to do during my tenure as governor of the state of New York. So we will get there, and I wanted to have you have a minute to listen to our other champions as well, but I think I'll start first by inviting up Senator John Mannion. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. It's great to see so many friends, people I didn't know a year and a half ago, and now we fight together to be a champion for people who have disabilities and their families. And many of those advocates and champions are people with disabilities themselves. I'm Senator John Mannion. I'm from Syracuse, New York, and I'm the chair of the Senate Disabilities Committee. And as chair, I have vigorously pursued an agenda of equality and fairness for every New Yorker, including those with disabilities and their families. And Governor Kathy Hochul has been a true partner in these efforts. I said when I took office, and when I was named to this position as the first ever chair of the Senate Standing Committee on Disabilities, that I would be a champion for this community. And I take those words very seriously, as do others. And I feel an obligation to make sure that we carry through on that promise and others. Little did I know at that time, and thanks to the governor, thanks to my leadership with Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, that the disability community has something they've really never had before, and that is a room full of champions who cares and understands and is making real progress. These new laws will make our state more inclusive. It will combat stigmas that have long been a part of our culture and need to go away. And it will also ensure that those who need services have a voice in their own care and in their own life decisions. And I believe that the leadership of this state and the committee that was established by my leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, is making a real difference. The issues that people with disabilities face are on the front burner in Albany, and the governor is a champion when it comes to those causes. Thank you. I spent 28 years in a high school classroom, and usually people say he was an AP biology teacher. But I was also a 15-to-1 living environment teacher. And I sat in those special education meetings, those CSE meetings. Sometimes the student was there, and sometimes they weren't. And when they were there, the adults in the room felt like we knew best. And then that student would chime in and say, actually, I don't want to take that course. And there was such value to that. And it changed the way that I taught, and it changed the way that I sat in those meetings. And before that meeting, I would say, is that student going to be here? And then they were. We can look back at what has been accomplished in the 50 years since Willowbrook, or the 32 years since the signing of the ADA. And for the individuals and the families back then, they must have thought, some of them, what will the world be like 50 years from now, or 32 years from now? And what would they say? That we've come a long way, or they thought that we would be further along? The two pieces of legislation that I was proud to push through the New York State Senate, and even prouder that the governor is signing them today. One of them is to establish a public awareness campaign to end the stigma, discrimination, and stereotyping that exists. We have come a long way. For those of you out there that have family members, you may feel like we've come a long way, but there will be fleeting moments in your family members' lives or your own life where you realize that we have not. And that's why this education and this legislation is so important. The second bill assures choice and a voice in decisions that are being made, like those students that I had years ago. There are a tremendous amount of advocates out there for this legislation. One of them happens to be the Britney Spears fan club. I'm not joking. And although, I'm a fan, I'm a supporter, it was not written with that person in mind. It was written with others in mind. And the fact that it will be signed into law today is beyond important. We all have one life to live, and it should be a dignified and enriched life. I'm proud to live in a state and work with a governor and a legislature that strives to meet at times what seem like an ideal, but is simply in reality a human right. We have not solved every problem in the past 50 years, nor the last 32 years, or during the time that I've been in office or the governor has. But it's about progress, it's about respect, it's about moving forward, and that's exactly what we are going to continue to do. So thank you again, Governor Hochul, and thank you to your team and my team and others that have made sure that the people 32 years into the future and 50 years in the future look back at this moment and say that the advocates and the families and the legislators and other leaders did what they could to make sure that an enriched life for all is met. Thank you for having me here today. I may have surpassed my 2 minutes, I do apologize, but it's my honor to welcome up to the podium the legislator that shared one of these bills with me, and I appreciate her leadership over the course of her time in the Assembly, Assemblymember Joanne Simon.
So, thank you, Senator. Thank you, Governor Hochul, for honoring and celebrating the 32nd anniversary of the ADA, which was a civil rights act for Americans with disabilities that ushered in a new era of equality for all Americans. At the time, Congress found that individuals with disabilities had been historically isolated and segregated, and that discrimination against individuals with disabilities continued to be a serious and pervasive social problem. And while we have made progress, too much of the promise of the ADA has been unfulfilled. So I am so proud that New York is stepping up and changing that picture here at home. As a longtime advocate for people with disabilities and a former teacher of the deaf, I was following the course of the ADA as we did hearings throughout the country. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the signing ceremony or even watch it on TV because I was taking the bar exam, which is another auspicious occasion. But I'm so grateful that A, I passed, and B, that it enabled me to continue that work at a different level, being a lawyer and helping people with disabilities achieve their rights and continue the progress and the promise of the ADA. So today, with her signature, Governor Hochul will enact several laws that are improving the lives of people with disabilities, from the public awareness campaigns to combat discrimination to changing the laws and eliminating the R word from our laws, finally, to this groundbreaking law about the supported decision-making, which is really a less restrictive way to avoid guardianship and to give people control over their own lives. People know what they want, and they know what they don't want, and too often we haven't listened to them. We haven't heard their voices, and we haven't given them the opportunity to learn from decision-making. We all make better decisions after we make some crummy ones, right? This is part of the human experience, and the supported decision-making bill is really a groundbreaking bill, and it is incredibly cool to be here today for that signature. I also want to thank my colleagues in the Senate and the Assembly, Senator Mannion, who has been my partner on a number of bills, and also to thank the Disabilities Chair, Assemblymember Tom Abenanti, who's not able to be with us here today, but who really fought for this committee to be a standing committee in New York State, and also to our Speaker, who responded to that call and has been supportive every step of the way. I also want to thank the advocates who are here today, including former surrogate judge Kristen Booth Glenn, who has been a beacon in this field, a mentor to me. Thank you so much. And to the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities and Commissioner Nyfield, it is so wonderful to have a partner to work with us on these issues and improve the lives of all New Yorkers. I also want to take a moment to thank all of the decision makers who are here today and those who advocated for this law. This is why we do the work that we do, and why I'm so proud to be a New Yorker today with a governor who listens and who cares. So thank you again, Governor Hochul, for your leadership, for your heart, for your finely tuned ear, your willingness to put your money where your mouth is, protect all New Yorkers so they can lead the lives that they want to have. Thank you so very much. And now I'd like to turn it over to Doug Hovey. Thank you so much.
Can you say unprecedented? This is just an incredible day for all of us, for all the people with disabilities in New York State, and all of you, stakeholders. As we were coming into this room, I heard the Beach Boys and the song, Good Vibrations. Well, there's a lot of good vibrations in this room right here. You can feel the energy. Governor, Thank you for your inspired leadership and for your warm embrace of the Americans with Disabilities Act and for all that you're doing on behalf of people with disabilities in New York State. Thank you. You know, back in 1988, I remember being at the steps of the Capitol building in D.C. We were fighting and advocating for the passage of this thing called the Americans with Disabilities Act. It didn't pass that session, but just 2 short years later, it in fact did pass. And we're very excited to be here today to celebrate the 32nd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I'm here on behalf of the association, the New York Association on Independent Living, which is a cross-disability association that represents 41 independent living centers throughout the state. Independent living centers are cross-disability organizations that represent the interests of all people with disabilities. I became disabled on July 27th, 1980, so 10 years before the passage of the ADA, almost to the day. And I remember what it was like pre-ADA, when there were no accessible entrances and bathrooms were not accessible. It was an entirely different world, to live as a person with a disability back then. We've made tremendous strides since that time. There's no doubt about that, both environmentally and in terms of the attitudes that recognize people with disabilities as valuable and valued, skilled, and contributing members to society. Both the ADA and the Olmstead decision, as Governor so eloquently pointed out, are having such a profound impact on the quality of life for all people with disabilities. We're so excited to be here. And one other thing I wanted to mention about the cross-disability movement and the ADA, the unique feature about the ADA is it doesn't distinguish between disability groups. It recognizes all of the commonalities and common themes that we all have as people with disabilities. We're fighting stigma, we're fighting stereotype, we're fighting discrimination, we're fighting underemployment, and so on. But there's a lot of good things happening here in New York State, and I'm truly honored again to be here. Back in February, we had an amazing event at the ILC of the Hudson Valley, the Independent Living Center of the Hudson Valley in Troy. And that was the signing of the Chief Disability Office legislation. Again, unprecedented legislation. We had been wanting this for many, many years, and I can't think of a better person to serve this state as a Chief Disability Officer than Kim Hill. So. Governor Hochul, thank you again for getting this done. The Most Integrated Setting Coordinating Council, fondly known as the MISC, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that. There's a lot of exciting work going on with the council. We've been having meetings. We've created 3 committees, one focused on deinstitutionalization, one focused on community services, and one focused on employment. And these committees have been meeting for several months now. And what's happening is the work of these committees is culminating into what we call the Olmstead Plan. And there's a work group that's been working tirelessly with Kim and with the support of the governor and her staff on the second floor, because it's not possible without that. And there's a new energy on the second floor, too, every time I'm there. And we have these sessions. They're work sessions. They're 4 hours. And it's not uncommon to see the governor stop in and to check in on us, or to see the governor's staff check on us. That's unprecedented. So today being the anniversary of the ADA, we owe a major debt also to the pioneers of the disability rights movement and so many others that have come before us, and far too many for me to mention today. But I do want to say that, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was really set the stage for the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we owe a huge debt of gratitude to Black Americans and the fight for justice that prevailed in the 50s and 60s, and that still continues today. The ADA... There's so much work being done today, and I know many of you are advocates and stakeholders and represent disability issues. I can't thank all of you enough for the work that you do in our communities across the state and for being here today. And just once again, Governor Hochul, can't thank you enough. Thank you for your leadership.
Please welcome back Governor Hochul to present a proclamation to Doug Hovey. Please remain seated during the proclamation presentation.
This is a very long proclamation, and I'm not going to read it to you because I'm a better politician than that, because nobody wants me to read all this, but it does pay tribute to the fact that we recognize this is a significant milestone in the march towards progress, and to celebrate declare this as the Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day here in the state of New York. And again, I thank all of our champions, because the work that we're doing here today is not just for all of us and all of you, it's for generations to come as we continue to move progress forward. So thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll do the bill signing then.
It's now time to sign some bills. Please remain seated during the bill signing ceremony. Thank you. Please remain seated.